di civiltà, confuso proteinia di cellule ribelli, vado verso l'universo, l'attraverserò, senza in sella fatti vedere, io mi fermerò. Oh, shiny day, la mia libertà, shiny day, oh no. Oh, shiny day, oh sogno realtà, shiny day, oh no. Volere la mia vita, no, non è finita, io mi fermerò, sciogli le mie vene, il cielo può normale, io ci crederò. Shiny day, la mia libertà, shiny day, oh no. Oh, shiny day, oh sogno realtà, shiny day, oh no.
Of Chatelet, which for those of you who don't know is the anthem of the fictional meme world Kekistan. Or, no, I take that back. I apologize. It is not fictional. Kekistan beats in the hearts of all. In fact, there, you can see Almighty Kek himself. Good evening, Liberty livestream viewers. Oh boy. I seem to have gotten ketchup on my shirt from dinner tonight. Excuse me. It's never a good idea to do a live stream with a ketchup stain on your shirt. Because then people don't take you as seriously. Then again, I've got a cartoon frog in the background, so take it for what it's worth. But a lot has happened in the past week that we seriously need to discuss. First of all, let's get the first item out of the way. Trump's first 100 days. Were they everything we hoped for? No, they were not. But he's only been in for 100 days. People who support him and oppose him both act like just because he hasn't gotten everything done in 100 days doesn't mean he's not going to get anything done when he's in the rest of his term. For what it is worth, President Trump did accomplish a lot in his first 100 days, bringing 500,000 jobs back to the United States, securing better trade deals with China, and also hopefully securing China's side in a potential war with North Korea that could happen because little fatty Kim Jong-un seems to be exercising his military muscle a lot lately because he doesn't really have any actual muscle to preach. Little fatty. But, let's be honest, folks. There were disappointing aspects about Trump's first 100 days. The Syria strike was one of them at the moment. And another disappointing aspect is Trump is increasingly surrounded by globalists. I'm disappointed by his decision to bring Ivanka and Jared Kushner into advising position in the administration. Because Kushner refused to disclose his supposed business dealings with George Soros, which is absolutely 100% shady. So, I'm disappointed about that. I'm disappointed that overall, I'm disappointed that the Trump administration has been breached by globalist forces. seeking to undermine everything Trump wants to do. Now, to be perfectly realistic, we should have seen this coming. Like, we knew that they were going to do everything in their power to surround him with hostile globalist forces to undermine his nationalist agenda. But I feel like he's trying to make the best of it, and I hope that he will overcome their influence on him and get a lot done. So, I'm still hopeful, and hey, it can't get any worse than the past 25 years or so. I think it was more than 25 years. No, 30 years. Bush Sr. came to power in 88. That's when things started going downhill for the country. That's when the political families all started to assume control of the country. And I feel like the Obamas could become the next, the next Clintons or the next Bushes, a family dynasty trying to run for president. And let's be honest, this could happen to the Trumps too. I feel like, there's potential for any one of Trump's kids to try and run for office. And depending on how Trump does as president, they may or may not win if they decide to run. However, I don't think, at this point, I'm not sure if I would support any of them, because I have no idea what they would do. But I'm not even saying they will run for president. But the Clintons are already grooming Chelsea Clinton to run for office. And Hillary Clinton, that's something else we got to talk about. Hillary Clinton, she came out of whatever godforsaken lair she's been hiding in for the past few months to once again blame her defeat on the FBI. If you didn't hide so much stuff, and if you weren't such a shady person in general, they would have nothing to investigate. Hillary Clinton is a sore loser. Hillary Clinton is still whining and complaining. I would have been president. Like, shut up. You lost. Deal with it. And you guys gave Trump so much. you guys gave Trump so much for saying that he might not accept the results of the election, which you should. That's a terrible thing to say. But then you go along and you're whining and complaining and rioting about the election results. So much for a graceful defeat. Hillary Clinton needs to get over it. She lost. She's a sore loser. She's still blaming her defeat on outside forces, when in reality she lost because she is a corrupt career politician who is completely out of touch with regular Americans. That's why she lost. WikiLeaks was just doing its job when they leaked all those Clinton emails. That's another thing I'm disappointed about. Members of the Trump administration calling for the arrest of Julian Assange. I am of the belief that Julian Assange should be pardoned, because I believe that if it wasn't for Julian Assange, the election might not have turned out the way it did. I believe that Julian Assange exposed everything that the American people had a right to know about Hillary Clinton, about Barack Obama, about George W. Bush, and about the Bush and Clinton crime families in general. I think WikiLeaks is a bastion for freedom, and everything on that site is things that the American taxpayer, you gotta remember, all the documents that the government classifies from the American people are funded with taxpayer money. Those are our documents. Those are our documents that they are hiding from us. So, WikiLeaks is just giving us what is rightfully ours. That's it. That is all they are doing. And now on to the second issue of the day. Well, second of many. Marine Le Pen and... Marine Le Pen and Emmanuel Macron had a one-on-one debate today. And if you ask me, it kind of reminded me of the presidential debates. I'm just going to say it. Marine Le Pen trumped Macron. Marine Le Pen totally trumped Macron. Macron carried himself very immaturely, hurling personal insults at Marine Le Pen and droning on about his policy. And keep in mind, this is a French debate. previous French presidential debates, I haven't been able to find English dubs, but this one I was able to watch live. English dubbed, although I would have preferred subtitles, honestly. But Macron, all I heard when he was revealing his policies was European this, European that, European this, European that, European economics, European borders, European Council, Euro, Euro, Euro. Meanwhile, Marine Le Pen was like, French interests, French borders, French sovereignty, stopping terror attacks. Macron is completely out of touch, as people on the... By the way, people claim that Macron is a centrist candidate. Macron is about as centrist a candidate as Bernie Sanders. Macron is the leftist candidate. Don't let anybody fool you. Macron is the Francois Hollande successor. Hollande himself even said so. Macron will be his successor. Now, grant whether or not that is true is up to the French voters. Emily, it's Pepe. Hillary Clinton... Oh, by the way, speaking of Hillary Clinton gave a... Anybody remembers summer of last year? Hillary Clinton gave a whole speech about how Pepe the Frog is racist. That frog won a presidential election. Who's stupid now? I remember seeing a meme. It's from The Simpsons, I believe. Old woman yells at frog. Picture of Hillary Clinton yelling at a Pepe computer screen or something like that. Pepe is a god, yes! Praise Keck! Praise Keck! Yeah, Pepe is a god. And now, back to the French presidential debates. I'll never forget the instance where Marine Le Pen snubbed Macron. I don't know if I talked about this in a previous stream, but I'm going to mention it again because it's so great. Macron was going to give a press conference at a factory. And lo and behold, Marine Le Pen shows up. And the workers who were expected to go talk with Macron, none of them went Macron's way. They all went to go talk to Marine Le Pen. All of them. Marine Le Pen was surrounded by the workers in the factory. Macron was surrounded by the media, of course. If that doesn't show you anything, then I don't know what your political senses are. Because, let me tell you, Marine Le Pen's rallies remind me a lot of Trump's rallies. They have massive attendance. They have this patriotic spirit behind them. And there's a genuine feeling of hope that their country will become great again. And that's not Marine Le Pen's official slogan, but that's sort of become an unofficial slogan that people who support her both in France and support her internationally have came up for her campaign. Even though I believe her official slogan is Au nom du peuple, which means in the name of the people, not the globalists. People, it's people like Marine Le Pen, Geert Wilders. Hold on, I'm trying to put my mic on a stand so I don't have to keep bending my neck. I'm trying to find something to use. Ooh, here's a box over here. The box is a little too small, but it works. What was I talking about? I already forget. Oh, jeez. Oh, jeez. Hold on, let me try switching. Hey! Oh! There it goes. The mic is now at optimum volume. But oh, now I don't have to bend my neck because you can hear me just fine. But, people like Marine Le Pen, people like Nigel Farage, people like Donald Trump, people are standing up for their own country against the interests of the globalists. Now, the fundamental difference between globalism and nationalism is simply, or globalism and patriotism if you prefer, is the following. People in the globalists are basically the people who control the world, the big corporations, all the, neoliberal, neocon, left-wing governments, so on and so on. And their ultimate goal is to slowly erode the nation states of the world and govern people under a single universal body, which is dangerous to the concept of culture, dangerous to the concept of identity, dangerous to the concept of liberty, and especially dangerous to the concept of sovereignty. Because a single world government would essentially destroy the sovereignty of nations, eliminating their right to govern themselves as they please. Meanwhile, the patriots and the nationalists see their country as the institution that matters most to them. Patriots and nationalists believe that countries and nations have the right to govern themselves in accordance with their cultures, in accordance with their identity, and in accordance with their laws. They believe that countries should stick up for themselves above others, while not necessarily ignoring the concerns of other countries. Our argument is basically that countries and nations, countries, whatever you want to call them, must protect themselves above others. The United States is no exception to this, because people who want the United States to help everybody else, we can't help everybody else if we're not helping ourselves. Because if we're helping everybody else and not keeping track of ourselves, our resources are drained and we can't do anything about it. So we collapse, and then all of our aid to these other countries goes away. So we have to look out for ourselves before we look out for others. And it's really the best way to help others, because if the United States gets its own stuff together, we'll be able to provide more aid, more support, more help for third world countries that we already do provide aid to. Which, by the way, all the America haters out there, America provides more aid to third world and impoverished countries than any other country in the world. So that's just something cool that America does, among many other things. But back to France. So Sargon of Akkad made a video explaining why he thinks Marine Le Pen will win. And I think the primary issue is terrorism. Macron is a waffler on the issue of terrorism. France has suffered 20 jihadist terror attacks since Charlie Hebdo. 20. And the leadership has done nothing whatsoever to prevent it or stop it. And Macron wants to continue in those footsteps. Macron even said, we have European borders, and those are our real security. European Union borders have allowed people to come into the country that support terrorism. Anybody can come in under EU free movement law, and that leaves the door open to terrorists coming into the country. Whereas Marine Le Pen wants to halt immigration from countries that support terrorism, and countries where terrorists are known to come from, typically in the Middle East. And something else that they have to worry about too, not just Middle Eastern terrorism, not just jihad, but also communist terrorism and leftist terrorism. You gotta remember, jihad and leftism share a lot of the same tactics. They both cover their faces. By the way, I gotta say, jihad. By the way, I gotta stress one thing. The primary victims of jihad are other Muslims. Okay? The primary victims of jihad, both in the West and abroad, are other Muslims. So in my opinion, the problem when it comes to terrorism is that a lot of America's allies, like Saudi Arabia, Qatar, Bahrain, and so on, fund and support terrorist groups like ISIS, Al-Qaeda, and the Taliban. It is provable that Saudi Arabia bankrolled the rise of ISIS. They bankrolled Al-Qaeda and the Taliban. Why are we supporting Saudi Arabia if they fund so many terrorist groups against us? Simply because we're dependent on their oil. While the West is making enemies of countries like Russia that could provide us with plentiful oil. And the United States even has the most... and the United States has more... I've heard the United States has more oil in the Dakotas than there is in the entire Middle East. But Middle Eastern oil is apparently cheaper, so once that's all used up, then we'll use our own stuff. Makes a lot of sense. So, if you want to stop terrorism, stop supporting Saudi Arabia. Stop buying Saudi Arabian oil. Their economy will go under, and the terrorist groups that they support will be weakened. The Saudi government is really one of the worst in the world. The Saudi government is terrible to its own people. It carries out systematic discrimination against women, religious minorities, and indeed, it's certainly one of the most repressive governments in the modern era, on par with governments like North Korea. Now, with that said, Saudi Arabia is still an ally of the West. For whatever reason, I have no idea. By the way, if any of you can hear that jingle in the background, that is an ice cream truck. It is currently 8:50 at night. What little kid is outside in the dark and wants ice cream? Why would an ice cream truck come at this time? I ask you, why? What a stupid time for an ice cream truck to come into a neighborhood. Do they honestly think there's anybody walking out at this time? Except for hoodlums? Or people who just need some fresh air or something? I don't know. People go outside for different reasons at night. I don't know. But if you want to stop terrorism, you need to hit Saudi Arabia hard with sanctions and stop buying Saudi oil. But this is very unlikely to happen. This is very unlikely to happen because the U.S. and the West are dependent on Saudi oil above all else. With that said, the Saudis are still our allies. And whether we like it or not, we gotta live with it. Personally, I think the people in Saudi Arabia should... I think the people in Saudi Arabia should stick up for their rights, which their government continues to abuse. Because the primary victims of the Saudi government are the Saudi people themselves. And so I think that, even though this would be incredibly difficult for them, because dissent is brutally crushed in Saudi Arabia. I believe once there was an anti-war protest in Saudi Arabia where people were shot and killed by police officers. So it's incredibly difficult. But in the age of the internet, even in places like North Korea, it is possible to access information. Even in places like China, where the government strictly controls the internet, it is possible to get information that is supposedly blocked by the government. Roger Stone once said, the internet is the ultimate tool for freedom. No matter how hard they try to control it, they can never fully control it. Because it is vast. And the internet is an information goldmine. It is a goldmine for people with new opinions to express themselves. Anybody can express themselves on the internet, whether it be seriously or jokingly. But the internet is the ultimate tool for freedom. And speaking of the internet, this leads us on to the last topic of the night. Now, I am going to say this. The left cannot meme. I'm sorry, it had to be said. The left cannot meme. Have you seen leftist... That little piece of hair is kind of bothering me. It's sticking out all weird like. Look at that. Ugh. Come on. Man, that little thing does not... Man, this just does not want to stay down. There it goes. The left cannot meme. I know they have pages and pages dedicated to their dank memes, if they could even call them dank memes, but I'm sorry. Their lefty normie memes are incredibly cringeworthy and incredibly stupid. Have you ever seen leftist memes? They are all incredibly cringy and incredibly... Like, we've got Pepe. Enough said. Who do they have? I don't know. They don't have anybody. We've got Kekistan, and they've got memes complaining about conservatives don't care about live babies. Whereas we've got memes about Whereas we've got funny memes about Trump saving the West, they've got memes about, we need the government to ban all the things. And they use the same memes again and again and again. Now, I'm not saying the right is not guilty of this. Far from it. but at least we make new memes all the time. Pepe is our icon. He's the icon of the countercultural right, or the new right. By the way, I just like to stress something. Back when the alt-right first started, I believe that it was the faction of Milo, Paul Joseph Watson, and others, but there's been a split. Alt-right, new right. I falsely categorize myself as alt-right, which I am not. I am new right. I am a civic nationalist. I believe that citizens of a country, no matter what their color or whatever, are inherently a part of the country and should stick up for the country. In my opinion, forgive my language, I do not give a rat's ass what color you are. If you're a good, decent person, and you love America, and you contribute to society, then you are a damn good person in my book. I really don't care what color you are. If you're an American, you're an American. By the way, that's something that the left loves to say that we're racist, and yet they are the ones constantly dividing us into race. Like African American, white American, Asian American. Like, why can't we just be Americans? I don't get that. Why can't we just be Americans? Is it just me, or does that sound like they are the ones trying to divide us? Now, they claim to be for racial equality, and yet they always, whenever they're talking about somebody, they always try to identify them by their race. Whereas we, in the countercultural right, most of us at least, with a few exceptions, very few exceptions, see you as an American. And a good example of this would be the Third Battle of Berkeley. You know, if you look at the Trump people, you got white people, you got black people. In fact, the person who triumphantly held the American flag in front of those Antifa terrorists, which is what they are terrorists. The person who triumphantly held the American flag in front of them, I believe, was black. There were a lot of Hispanics in there. I saw a couple of Asians too. Very diverse group of people. Whereas if you look at Antifa, they're all white. They're all white. You know, they're anti-racist, but there's not a single minority in there. I just find that so funny. Also, another irony lost on those on the left is, well, lost on me at least, about the left. Why is it that they claim to represent the working and lower classes, and then when the working and lower classes express an opinion contrary to theirs, they dismiss them as backward, racist, bigots? Ugh! Like, I don't understand. To me, it sounds like they only seek to advance their own agenda and don't really care. Oop! Drop the mic. And don't really care about the working man and woman of America and of the world, as they like. Because their big thing is internationalism, a la globalism. But let's be real. There's only one place in the world where communism will work. Imagination. That is the only place communism will work. Because if you look at every single example of socialism and communism, it fails every time, and millions of people die. Imagination. It's the only place, I believe, where communism can work, and it baffles me as to why there are still those out there who believe it does work. It's the equivalent of touching your hand to a hot stove over and over and over again. Just give it up already. The working class are not communists. The working class do not like communists. Because often you find a lot of these Antifa communist people are rich, suburban white people who grew up with all the privileges and are looking for attention or trying to be edgy. That's really what they are. and they've never owned a piece of property or have no wealth in their name. So in this revolution of theirs, they have a lot to gain and really nothing to lose in this revolution they seek. They often accuse, socialists accuse capitalism of being greedy because people want to maximize profit. I want to ask socialists this question. What is more greedy than taking wealth from somebody who has worked for it and giving it to somebody who has made no attempt whatsoever to work for anything in their lives? What is more selfish and greedy than that? If you ask me, that's pretty selfish. And Steven Crowder made a great video about this. He made a rebuttal of that video, I believe it was. I think it was a guy talking about, I think it was in a movie or a TV show or something. The guy talking about how America is no longer the greatest country in the world, which it absolutely is. This is still the greatest country in the world. I think there's a saying going around on the internet. It's called, "The world sucks and America sucks less." It's true, though. It's absolutely true, though. The world sucks and America sucks less. Because the United States, despite having its problems, is still the freest country in the world compared to countries like France, Japan, and Canada. Crowder goes into this in greater detail. I encourage you to go watch the video yourself. It's very good. By the way, I recommend Steven Crowder in general because I don't think I've ever heard that guy say something that was not brilliant. Steven Crowder is one of the greats, I believe. And I hope to God that he will run the country someday. Well, actually, no, he can't run for president because he was born in Canada. Like other presidential candidates, Ted Cruz. No, Ted. I'm actually very happy with what Ted Cruz has been doing in the Trump administration. He's been doing a lot to support Trump's policies, and I gotta say, I love the El Chapo pay for the wall plan. That is brilliant. I think it's nice. Because in a way, yeah, Mexico would be paying for the wall, and one of the biggest cartel leaders in history would get his, excuse me, that was a big burp, would get his comeuppance. And I think that would be a very fitting way to pay for the wall. Because a lot of people, when they come through the border, they do deal drugs. And so to have one of the biggest drug dealers ever pay for the wall with his confiscated wealth, I think would be incredibly fitting. But that's just me. I'll be right back. I have got to use the restroom. As I said, I'll be right back. Alright, I have returned. MAGA makers. Make America Great Again, makers. Yeah, that's a phrase I just made up. So, what are we talking about? I don't remember. Oh, well, let's get back to the fact that the left can't meme. You ever see leftist memes? They are incredibly cringy and stupid, and oftentimes they are repeated. I'm sorry, I gotta hold off again. My phone is about to die, and I need to charge it so that the Facebook live stream can continue. I'll be right back again. I'm sorry. All right. See you in a second. Oh, almost dropped the mic. Be right back. Hello? All right, so I think I finally figured out why my mic keeps cutting out all these times. One of the outlets on my computer is functional, and the other one is much less functional. I think that's how. I think that's how it is, or something. All right. Okay, so phone plugged in. Apparently only one USB outlet on my computer wants to work for me. Although that's nothing new. Only one USB outlet on my computer works anyway, which I don't understand. This computer was new, but whatever. I'm not gonna go through the trouble of taking it to get repairs and fix a little USB outlet. No, I guess not. But back to Antifa. Yeah, I remember what we were talking about before. We were talking about Antifa. No, I pretty much said all that needs to be said about Antifa. All right. This has been tonight's Liberty live stream. Have a good night.